Hello, my name is James Cruz, and I'm a teaching artist with the Vermont Arts Council. And I'm here to talk to you today about writing as a form of self-care. So I think of self-care as just a way of really looking after your own needs and kind of staying in touch with your emotions, your desires, what's really going on deep inside of you. And because writing is such a bodily process, often we're doing it with our hands, we're typing or tapping. And so because we do it with our body, I think that writing is one of the best ways we have to stay in touch with what's going on with us. So what we like or dislike, what we enjoy, how we're feeling, everything. And for me as a poet, one of the best ways that I've found in my life, really in the last 20 years since I've been writing poetry seriously, is to use poetry as a way to practice self-care. So if I have a moment that I really want to hold on to, I'll write it down. It doesn't always come as a poem. Sometimes it's a paragraph, it's a journal entry, and maybe later it turns into a poem as well. But I do think that poetry, because it's really condensed language, but also uses the everyday words that we all have access to and use, is one of the best ways we have to hold on to the moments that please us, or even to process the difficult moments that we've had in our lives whenever we're ready to do so. I know that a lot of you may not know exactly what a poem is, or you might be confused what poems are, and that's okay too. I do want to share a quote with you from the great poet Naomi Shihab Nye, and she says that when you're in a very quiet place, when you're remembering, when you're savoring an image, when you're allowing your mind calmly to leap from one thought to another, that's a poem. And when you do it in writing, that's when a poem is born. And so it's a very simple thing to just sit down, let the words pour out, and really, if you want to call it a poem, it's a poem. So in the space of writing, in the playful place of just putting words on the page, I would encourage you all not to worry too much about what's right or wrong, whether or not to rhyme, whether or not you use this simile or that metaphor. What I would encourage you to do instead is just to let it all happen. You can worry about naming it later, but the most important thing is to stay in touch with your intuition and the space that allows you to write or process what's happening to you right now. And I think that's where self-care can really be born. So what I'll do with you in this video is just share a few poems of my own that I think help us to access the place of self-care, and then I'll offer you an invitation after each one so that you can try writing on your own. And for your own writing, it can be a poem, it can be a paragraph, journal entry, whatever you want it to be. So again, don't worry too much about right or wrong, or even following my directions for the invitation after each poem. I would really just kind of encourage you to write whatever comes to you. So the first poem that I'd like to share is actually called Self-Care. And I wrote this because, especially during these difficult times, I've been trying very consciously to practice self-care, to sit down in stillness and in that quiet place like Naomi Shihab Nye described, and really ask myself, what do I need in this moment? Especially if I'm feeling sad, angry, confused, worried about the future. I've really been asking myself, what can I do now? What little actions can I take to make this moment better? Sometimes it's a cup of tea, sometimes it's calling a friend or a family member to kind of ask for help or see if someone will listen. But really, it's about practicing just looking deep inside and asking ourselves what we need. It can feel very foreign and it can feel cheesy or even difficult to do, but I think especially now, it's a very essential practice. So this poem is called Self-Care. Some days it feels like a foreign language I'm asked to practice, with new words for happiness, work, and love. I'm still learning how to say a cup of tea for no reason, what to call the extra honey I drizzle in, how to label the relentless urge to do more and more as useless, and how to translate the heart's pounding message when it comes. Enough, enough. This morning, I search for words to capture the glimmering sun as it lifts above the mountains. Clouds already closing in as fat droplets of rain darken the deck. I'm learning to call this stillness self-care too, just standing here as goldfinches scatter up from around the feeder like broken pieces of bright yellow stained glass, reassembling in the sheltering arms of a maple. So, for this invitation, I would invite you to think about what self-care means to you. So how would you define it? And what are those practices that you know help to make you feel better, but that are more difficult for you to practice or remember in the moment when you're really struggling with something? And then you might write about how it feels when you do practice that self-care, when you do take care of your own needs. For me, in this poem, the image that came to me was of a whole flock of goldfinches kind of coming together again and reassembling in the tree. Because when we're struggling, when we're feeling scattered, it can feel like we're just all these broken pieces all over the place. But then when we pause to really take care of ourselves, and often to write it down and see what we're dealing with and what we're feeling, we kind of are able to make ourselves feel more whole again. So the next poem I'd like to share is called Nor'easter. And as you can guess, this is about a winter storm that came last year. And my father-in-law often plows our driveway here, and he showed up bright and early one morning when it was snowing like crazy. I was worried if I was going to be able to get out of the driveway to work, worried about the state of the world, and just seeing him there, knowing that he loved us enough to make us his first stop in the morning, plowing our driveway, getting us out and sending us out into the new day, made me feel so, so hopeful. So this is Nor'easter. I lay in bed this morning, worried about the state of the world, when I turned to find a pair of headlights slicing through the pre-dawn darkness at the end of our driveway, and knew my father-in-law had come to plow us out after last night's sudden snowstorm. "Bless you," I said to the cab of his truck, to his steady hands on the wheel, marked by years of carpentry, to cigarette smoke embedded in the seats and steam curling up from the plastic lid on his cup of gas station coffee. To this man who loves us enough to make our house his first stop, who can be counted on even in the middle of a March nor'easter, before the sun's a wink over the mountains, lowering his plow blade to scrape us a path out into the hope of a brand new day. So for this one, I would invite you to write about a time when someone did something for you that made you feel hopeful, or that kind of restored your faith in the essential kindness of humanity and the world. So just describe what that moment was like, maybe how you were before, how you were feeling then, and how this person's gesture made you feel afterwards. I think it's important for us to pay attention to these moments because we begin looking for them more in our own lives, and it kind of tunes us in to what we're feeling in our bodies, and kind of that sensation of hope or faith in the world rising up again. And once more, remember to write whatever comes to you, even if you don't exactly pay attention to my words or follow this invitation completely. Just write whatever comes into your mind. Follow that moment to its very end. And the last poem that I want to share with you all is Church. And this poem was written after I got together with a friend. Oftentimes I forget just how essential it is to just meet up with a friend with no other agenda, no other work, and really just talk and share what's going on in our lives. And it reminds me the power of really asking how someone is doing and being there to really listen to the answer. So really creating that space between two people that makes each of you feel cared for and loved. So this is called Church. When I ask how you are, imagine a field of untouched snow stretching blank between us, waiting for the answer of your steps, perhaps hesitant at first and then more certain as you begin to share the sorrows and joys that sit like unwrapped offerings in the altar of your heart. Here there's time for you to say all the words that have weighed you down, hidden in the body for years like unasked prayers. I promise to listen for as long as you need in this open-air church we can enter together whenever we agree to speak of deeper things. So for this one, I would invite you to think about a time when you were with a family member, a friend, maybe boyfriend, girlfriend, or partner, and you felt that same space opening up between you. I really think of it as a sacred space that we open up between ourselves whenever we truly are there to listen to another, to the sorrows that they might have, the difficulties, without trying to fix them, and listening also to the joys that they might be experiencing, and allowing ourselves to feel joy for them, even if we might feel jealous or, want the same things that they're getting right now, to really just kind of put that aside for the moment and really be present to the other person for whatever sorrow or joy they're feeling. So you might describe a time when you were able to do that for someone, or whenever they were able to do that for you. Again, just follow whatever image comes to your mind whenever you think about two people meeting together and sharing that sacred space between them. I want to thank you all so much for listening. I hope you stay safe, stay well, and I want to wish you happy writing.